It was a benefit to me and maybe the benefit to them because I maximized the profits.
And was that process fairly simple, streamlined? Was it that sort of the sale process? Was that an elaborate process? Was there anything that you took out of that process that informed how you did it again the next time?
Yes. Yeah, it's a great question. I learned something very significant in that first transaction
Mm.
that I brought forward to the second transaction. Um, that I was forced, my partner and I were forced to take a haircut.
Mm.
And maybe some of your listeners won't really know what a haircut is. I know you do.
Yeah.
Um, but we were scheduled to close. And the CEO of the public company, who really wasn't involved in the transaction, came to the closing. And we were in a side room, and he said, "Look, there's going to be construction on the road. There's going to be a taking. There's going to be a full moon, whatever it is." And he cut the sale price $1 million.
Wow.
And he said, "Either take it or leave it." So we were already mentally down the road.
Yeah.
So we took it, but it left a very sour taste in my mouth. And that was the proverbial haircut. And I tell that story a lot for people who are going through the M&A process. Just be prepared
Yeah.
because sophisticated buyers, they're going to try you on. My next time through, I made it abundantly clear. If there's any thought of a haircut in any way, shape, or form, let's talk about it now because
Yeah.
the deal's dead.
Yeah. We had Scott Fink, legendary car dealer owner, on the podcast today. What a great conversation we had. Scott came into the car business relatively young, started at Ford in sort of an operations role, an accounting role, and eventually became one of the owners of a Mitsubishi dealership that was failing. And within 3 years, turned it into the number one dealership in the country. He soon thereafter sold it and then did it again with Hyundai. Turned that into the number one dealer in the country as well and did it 12 times. That isn't a coincidence. That's not simple. And I have never heard of anyone doing that before. So he certainly has an operational philosophy. He lives his life by the same philosophy, and we got into that a bit. He's incredibly motivated by philanthropy and community and family. Really great takeaways from Scott today. There's so much there to harvest as a business owner. He's sold twice. He's purchased multiple dealerships. His approach to people, his approach to customer acquisition and preservation. He's in a transactional world, and he's taking a relationship-based approach. Really interesting dynamics at play. And I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. Welcome to Closing Remarks. I'm your host, Dara Shareef, and I have with me today Scott Fink. Scott,
Hi, Dara.
how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for allowing me to spend some time with you today.
Well, thank you. You're the one who has the story to tell today. So I'm just going to be the conduit for the audience, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say because you've got a career that's gone on. I won't say how many years.
Thank you.
I don't want to embarrass anybody here in the room.
Thank you.
But it's certainly a rich career with a lot of lessons to impart on the business owner, their spouse. I think that's what we want to cover today. So I know you grew up in Brooklyn.
I did, yes.
I'll say modest upbringing.
A stretch.
Yeah,
Maybe modest is a stretch.
Why don't you give us sort of that background, your origin story?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in the projects in Brooklyn, New York, actually Sheepshead Bay.
Sure.
I think one of the more interesting things is that my parents, I'm the third son, significant delta between all of us, 18 years younger than my eldest brother. And my parents met as orphans in New York City. So it took me a number of years to recognize the good of that, if you will, and how successful they were, understanding they had no guidance, no help, no support. But it was not easy growing up. I like to joke that we always talked about money.
Yeah.
And in the context of that, we really just never had any. And the lack of financial resources caused ongoing stress in the house.
And how did they meet as orphans? Was there something, some sort of community center, or they just happened to bump into each other and they were both orphans? Is that really how it worked?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
they were all living in like a, if you call it like a group home. It was an orphanage,
Yeah.
and my dad was a couple of years older. I think my dad might have been 10 or 12. My mom was 8, and they met and they had a group of friends, and they were friends,
Wow.
and then they took it from there.
And you were an athlete.
Yes.
I was as well. And that was kind of your gateway to college, right? That's kind of how you manifested a college career.
Yeah. So the joke in my family is I was a shot putter and a power lifter. I was about 100 pounds heavier than I am now.
Okay. Okay.
And I was a fairly successful high school shot putter. I think my success in the shot put was directly related to the relationship I built with my coach in high school,
Mm,
who went to Wagner College. And Bob Murphy is his name. And Bob used to say, you're a good shot putter. You're a better person. He knew I didn't have the resources to go to college, and he really helped open a door for me, introducing me to the coach and administration at the school. I got some loans. He got me some athletic scholarships and discounts, and he helped really pave the way for me. That was really the first mentor outside of my family that made a big difference in my life.
and you studied accounting.
I did.
And how did you sort of parlay all those experiences you had, and then also the accounting degree into a role in the car industry?
So I graduated with an accounting degree. I'm not sure what I wanted to do, and I wound up getting a job, a worker for a large utility in New York. And I could have gone into staff accounting, auditing, or financial accounting. I went into auditing because I'm really more of a people person. I was good with numbers, but I really didn't want to be an accountant. And when I decided to major in accounting, I didn't really understand what that really
Yeah.
meant. I was just pretty good with numbers
Yeah.
and pretty quick on my feet.
Yeah.
Um, but I knew I didn't want to work in that industry and work in a regulated field. So it took me about a year answering blind ads in the New York Times, if you remember,
Yeah.
Dara.
I certainly do. Yeah.
Right? Every
Yeah.
Sunday, I got the New York Times, and I would handwrite
Yeah.
resumes, and then wound up getting a job for Ford Motor Company, and I worked for their corporate office, their regional office, if you will, in New Jersey, and
Okay.
that was my entry into the car business.
And I know I'm going to fast forward a little bit, but I know you ended up being sort of solicited with one of those guys you knew
Yes.
to partner in a Mitsubishi dealership. So maybe talk about that, as that's a pretty big move, right, from corporate to running a dealership.
You're right. So I befriended one of the best things about the job at Ford is you got to meet some very interesting people. And back then, where before public money or private equity, your dealerships were all privately owned.
Yeah.
And if you think about the hometown that you were in, the most significant people in town almost always were the car dealers or the bankers.
Yeah.
So the car dealers bought the little league uniforms, et cetera, et cetera. So I got to build relationships with all these different men and women. One individual in Bayside, Queens, he and I really hit it off. Called me one day. We got together. He said, "What do you think about uh, going on the retail side of the business?" I said, "I don't really want to work for you." He said, "I don't want you to work for me either. I want you to be my partner." And at that point, we forged a relationship and then found this Mitsubishi store.
So you found a store. It was not a forming store. It was an underperforming store, and you came in and didn't know the business at all, right? You had
Correct.
to
Yes,
you had to learn the business very quickly. I know within 3 years you've turned it into the number one dealership.
I did.
How does one do that? That sounds impossible.
Yeah. So retrospectively, I knew my skill set. My skill set was numbers. I was a pretty good marketing guy, very good with people, but I didn't know the car business. So the first 6 months, I just watched and listened
Yeah.
and learned. And then I reached out to successful Mitsubishi dealers and other brand dealers, and I picked their brains and I met with them. And I took a lot of those best practices and put them in place in my dealership.
Mm.
Turned over a lot of the staff, found people who were like minded, who wanted to put the customer first. And clearly, in any business, right, you have to look at it either transactionally or relationship. And although we are in a transaction-based business, I said from the very beginning, we're going to go out there and build relationships. People have choices in the world, but given choices, if you take care of them, high propensity they're going to come back to you. Probably no different than Benchmark, right? They'll do business with you again if you take care and foster the relationship. So that was really my focus, and it really worked. The other thing I did was building those relationships, fostering that, taking care of them, using those people as vocal advocates
Mm.
for my business and the brand. So you can only spend so many marketing dollars as a small startup business, but when you have 100 customers or 150 customers every month talking about you and your brand, it starts to steamroll. And that was really the beginning, simply stated.
So they became your evangelists.
They did.
Sort of,
Yes, it's a good word, right? I always say vocal advocates, evangelists, they're speaking on your behalf when you're not there.
And so what's the service? You certainly deliver a product. What's the service you deliver that's incremental in a way that has them be sort of becoming an action more than an advocate, but really like an evangelist for your business?
Yeah, I think it's simple. It's like in any business. People can say they really care, but do they really care?
Yeah.
We really cared, and we didn't put profit first. We put you first. And if we lost money on a sale of a car, so be it, because your relationship to me was more important than the short-term transactional profitability. This was a long-term game with me. When I started, I was 27 years old, was just getting married, starting my life here in Florida. I wanted to build this business long term. So we had the capital structure that we could afford to do that. And I put my money where my mouth was and said, yes, your relationship to me is more important than the short term profit.
And then soon thereafter, you actually sold that business, right? It wasn't that long afterwards that you sold the business.
So the partner and I were able to acquire the adjacent Toyota dealership. So we had Mitsubishi and Toyota.
Okay.
So I had Mitsubishi in 1989, bought Toyota in 1996, and then sold both of them. My first transaction to a public company in 1998. Um, and when we did that deal, I had a 1 year earnout,
Mhm.
and then I stayed on with this public company for a couple of years and kind of ran a small part of their business.
So the earnout, I just covered this on our last episode. So can you tell me about some of the details of your earnout? What was being measured, and did you actually hit the earnout or not?
Yeah, so the earnout was pretty simplistic.
Yeah.
It was all really bottom line profit based.
Okay.
That was the only thing that they cared about. And there were a couple of stretch goals. So I was focused exclusively on that. If I was structuring the earnout, I might have made sure there were some other parameters like customer
Yeah.
satisfaction and retention, right, for the long term. But they were a new company; they just wanted profit. So I focused on that, and I did achieve 100% of the earnout.
Which is interesting. We talked about how structuring the earnout is so important.
Yes.
Now doing it on the bottom line is actually can be problematic, right? Unless you have actual control and agency over that P&L. So you must have had actual modicum of control
I did.
over that P&L.
Yeah, I did. There was no manipulation. There was no added expense. I had my hands around it. Um, and maybe because the company was fairly new,
Yeah.
and they were not quite as sophisticated yet, it was a benefit to me and maybe the benefit to them because I maximized the profits.
And was that process fairly simple, streamlined? Was it that sort of the sale process? Was that an elaborate process? Was there anything that you took out of that process that informed how you did it again the next time?
Yes. Yeah, it's a great question. I learned something very significant in that first transaction
Mm.
that I brought forward to the second transaction. Um, that my partner and I were forced to take a haircut.
Mm.
And maybe some of your listeners won't really know what a haircut is. I know you do.
Yeah.
Um, but we were scheduled to close. And the CEO of the public company, who really wasn't involved in the transaction, came to the closing. And we were in a side room, and he said, look, there's going to be construction on the road. There's going to be a taking, there's going to be a full moon, whatever it is. And he cut the sale price $1 million.
Wow.
And he said, either take it or leave it. So we were already mentally down the road.
Yeah.
So we took it, but it left a very sour taste in my mouth. And that was the proverbial haircut. And I tell that story a lot for people who are going through the M&A process. Just be prepared.
Yeah.
Because sophisticated buyers, they're going to try you on. My next time through, I made it abundantly clear, if there's any thought of a haircut in any way, shape, or form, let's talk about it now because
Yeah.
the deal's dead.
Yeah. So what would you do differently? I mean, would you have walked away from the deal?
I may have walked away from the deal, or I may have made it abundantly clear that that is not going to happen. Instead, and I was the minority partner at the
Yeah.
time. The majority partner was down the road. So, the $1 million is real money, but he wanted out. So,
Yeah.
and it was $500,000 to me back then.
Significant money. And I know your retirement lasted almost 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was maybe 10 days. Maybe 10 days. I put all my suits in the closet. I bought khaki pants and golf shirts. And I realized at 37 years old, the whole thing about retiring early is sold by the industry.
Yeah.
And unless you've got a plan, it just didn't work for me. So I started a small chain of collision centers. And I built buildings, and I partnered with dealers who didn't have their own businesses and collision centers, and I had an operational guy, but it wasn't really satisfying enough, and I needed another direction.
And that came in the form of another opportunity to buy a dealership.
It did. So it wasn't this time to buy a delership. So
Stand one up, right?
There's only two ways to acquire a franchise, whether it be an auto dealership or a McDonald's.
Yeah.
You either have to buy it or you have to be awarded one.
Right.
So there was an opportunity they were going to put a Hyundai point in Newport Richey, Florida. There was no representation. And I had heard about it through a gentleman who used to work for me. And I sent a letter in, and there were 14 dealers, very competitive process. And I was awarded the franchise in 2001 and opened the building in Newport Richey, Florida in 2003.
And your success turning around that Mitsubishi dealership so quickly had to have been principal among the reason why you won out in that process.
I think 100%. I had built a great reputation for knowing how to sell cars in volume and taking care of customers. I also got very involved with the manufacturer, and I was on the National Dealer Council, chaired the dealer council. So in that little world, I had built a very positive name for myself. So I think you're right, Dara. When I sent the letter in, they knew who I was. And they knew who the other guys were too. The other big difference is that the other guys were all very large dealers.
Yeah.
I remember in the interview process, the marketing manager said, "Do you have anything else to say?" And I said, "Yes. If you afford me the opportunity, when you call the dealership, I will be in the building. These other gentlemen, they may be in the building once in a while, but they have 10 other dealerships. They're not going to be in the building. If you're looking for me,
Right.
I'm going to be standing in the showroom."
Yeah. You know where I am.
And they really like that.
And it strikes me that most dealers are fairly consistent in the brands that they tend to have. And you started with a Japanese brand and went to a Korean brand. I know you've had a German brand, actually you still have one.
Yes.
You've had American brands. How important is the actual car OEM, the brand, the country of origin? How important is that to the success? My sense is you have a script that will work for almost any brand of car.
Yes. So, is it important? I don't necessarily think it's important. I think what's important more so than the brand per se is the market. Whether it's a single point market, small town, one dealership, what we call multiple point markets, like we have here in Tampa Bay, between St. Pete, Clearwater, Wesley Chapel, Tampa, on any given day, you can drive to 10 Toyota stores if you wanted to. So it's a different business model. So it really has to do with what you're looking for, whether the market's growing or not, the competitiveness of the market, the demographics of the market. If the manufacturer, the OEM we call it doesn't have a broad product lineup, if they're financially struggling, yeah, you may want to think
Hmm.
about that.
Yeah.
But everything being equal, it's probably more the market to me than anything else.
Interesting. And you came here at a time where Tampa looked a lot different than it looks today.
Oh, for sure.
You've seen that climb. How much would you attribute of your success and growth to the sort of growth of the market?
If I had to do again, right, I'd sign up. Who knew? I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure people paid attention smarter than me knew. But even Newport Richie, when I opened Newport Richie, the planning volume that they give you as an operator was 60 cars a month. If we would sell 60 new cars a month, we would be 100% efficient.
Wow.
In the first month, we sold 141 cars. We sold as many as 700 cars in the month.
Wow.
We were the number one store, and I think, I sold this store 5 years ago, and they're still very successful. We were the number one store for 12 plus years in a row. And
Incredible.
a lot of that has to do with us and the way we came to market and our strategy. And the other side of it was ongoing growth, where I know you're from the Northeast.
Yeah,
A lot of markets that are stagnant, it's hard to grow.
it is.
You have to steal market share.
You do.
We look to steal share, but we also had people moving into the market.
No
It
doubt.
helps.
Yeah, no doubt. We talked we were chatting in the pre-interview. I would even call it we just a chat, sort of a chat pre-interview about Billy Fusillo. I know
Yes,
we both knew Billy back in the day. He was a famous Hyundai dealer, and I think you guys are probably 1-2 every year, is my sense.
we were. Billy, great guy. He and I were friendly
Yeah,
competitors.
yeah,
A
yeah,
great market. I'd call him a marketing genius.
yeah,
And as friends, we would stir the market together,
yeah.
which it benefited he and I and everybody else because it gets people shopping, gets people reading, it gets people thinking.
I think you both also put Hyundai on the map in markets that were becoming more important, especially, I think you more than him. Upstate New York, that 90 corridor is where he really lived. When I moved down here, he came down here too. It's like he followed me.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I wish I could have found you because you
Yeah.
made things kind of tough for me for a while. Yeah, I would say, and I think people at Hyundai would say that I was one of the linchpin dealers that really got Hyundai started.
Yeah.
When I got the franchise, Hyundai was selling about 98,000 cars a year, and now they sell upwards of 700,000.
Incredible. Wow.
Yeah, so we helped put it on the map here, and I can tell you, and I communicated with an old friend today, um, who is 15 years younger than me, and he looked at me as a mentor, and he said, you really helped me and other dealers. We looked at what you were doing, and we followed your lead, and they were able to sell more volume. So it was great, very
Well,
satisfying.
that's certainly nice to hear from other folks that you work with in your industry. So how quickly did you get it to be number one? I mean, you did it again. You did it again, which is incredible. That's kind of your way. So how much time did it take to become the number one dealer in the United States?
Yeah, it took a bit longer with Hyundai because they were further along, let's say, than Mitsubishi was when we first got it in 1989. And there were a number of very significant dealers. You may remember this other name from the Northeast, John Staluppi,
Oh yeah.
right? John Staluppi from Long Island,
Yeah.
very significant dealer. He was almost always in the top three. We had some other big dealers in the state of Florida on the East Coast. Staluppi had a store in Vegas, very
Hmm.
successful. There were stores in Texas. So it took us a while to break into the top 10, then the top five. But I would say it took me maybe 10 or 12 years for us to crack the number one spot. And what really made the difference is some of your listeners may or may not remember the cash for clunkers,
Oh yeah, of course.
right? Which, when we came out of the recession and the government got behind cash for clunkers, many people, many dealers, that was a very difficult time.
Yeah.
And the analogy I gave to a lot of my staff is like, look, we can go in the foxhole and we can hole up here and wait for this thing to pass. But what happens when you go in the foxhole? Typically, the enemy will find you and they'll kill you. So you might as well come out and fight.
Yeah.
So we decided to fight.
Yeah.
And what we were able to do during Cash for Clunkers, if we were selling 180 or 200 cars a month before, we came out of Cash for Clunkers selling 350
Wow.
because other dealers stayed in the foxhole.
Yeah.
And we captured that share and we built those relationships. And now, if you're a customer of mine and you're on the service drive and I'm talking to you, your retention rate is much higher than if I have to go and try to conquest.
So your approach to selling a car is very different than the more sort of contemporary approach. So I grew up, I'm 53 years old. So, my grandfather had a relationship. He was in Massachusetts, had a relationship with a car dealer, and he bought 4 or 5 cars over the course of 50 years from that one person. That maybe it was a father and a son he bought it from, right? It was a relationship. He didn't consider anywhere else. Today, I can do research to figure out what it is that person can sell the car for and lob offers to 7 different dealers and very quickly establish a deal without ever I've done it
Yeah.
without even going to a dealership.
Yeah.
I have a deal papered and I walk in, I buy the car and I'm out in 45 minutes. I don't like doing that, but I have done that. It's a very different transactional approach. And it's because, the asymmetry in information has kind of gone away.
Yes.
So talk about that. Your approach is very different than what sort of the prevailing thought process is for most, at least more informed customers.
Yes. And we face that every day. There's still many customers, I think a strong proportion of customers that understand the value in the relationship. And the thing I'll add, Dara, that's different today versus the story you told about your grandfather, with the move towards private equity and public ownership,
Yeah.
um, these are companies that have to be driven for profit. Private owned businesses or private capitalized businesses, sure, we need to make money to sustain ourselves,
Hmm.
but we're community minded first.
Yeah.
So, sure, if the only thing that matters to you is saving the $50, then that's fine. And I will sell you the car too, or maybe I won't get the chance to sell you the car. But if you understand the value of relationship like I do, then I'm going to be there for you.
Yeah.
I'll be competitive on price. There's no doubt about it. But you're going to have my cell phone. If you have a problem, your kid has a problem, I'm going to be there to help you. The public companies are not,
Yeah.
because those managers are going to turn over.
Yes.
And you know what? If you need help on the service drive, they're not going to do something for free.
Yeah.
Because they have profit margins to hit and they have earnings calls to conduct.
Yeah.
Where, as I like to say, when I have a board of directors meeting, I go in my office and I close the door.
Right. That's right. And it was a lot of margin in service as well. So they can make it up there. And that is the angle for them.
And that is the value in the relationship. So the business is really cut into 2 halves. There's variable, which is new, used car sales, financial insurance, et cetera. It's variable.
Yeah.
Fixed is more fixed, and that's service and parts, where, give or take, if something were to happen, you could have a dramatic fall off. As you grow your business, it's fairly fixed, and you can count on that. And the more units you have in operation, the higher that fixed business is. And that's how you can run a real profitable store.
It's interesting that business, the dealer business, you're interacting with sort of the OEM,
Yes.
right? You have a floor planner or the
Bank.
bank that is, lending you the money for the inventory.
Yes.
You have employees that, there's a lot of turnover in dealerships, right? It's not quite what the restaurant industry is, but there's a real complexity because of the various sort of functional components that are not necessarily synergistic. You've got these sort of disparate elements.
You're 100% right. What I like to call them all these different constituents
Yeah.
that you have to make happy,
Yeah.
right? You've got the OEM and you have to hit their targets,
Right.
the manufacturer, or else they'll be all over you. You've got your employees, you've got the customers, you've got the community,
Yeah.
right? You've got the FTC when it comes to advertising. So there's
Yeah.
lots. So from the outside world, people think, wow, how hard can it be? It's hard.
Yeah.
And it's harder today. Getting back to what you were talking about with, the internet and transparency and
Yeah.
ease of communicating with so many. And I like to joke, even from a marketing side, when I started advertising, you had cable, but when we were kids, you had 3 TV stations.
Yeah.
You had direct mail, newspaper, 3 TV stations. Today, where do you put your money? Article I read yesterday. If you're not on TikTok
Yeah.
as a dealer,
Yeah.
you're missing the boat. So Are we doing enough TikTok? I don't know. That's why you have to make sure, even internally, I like to say I'm young at heart. I'm 65.
Yeah.
So I have to surround myself with 30-year-olds because they live in this world that you and I really don't live in anymore.
No, no, you're absolutely right. So getting back to the Hyundai experience, right? So you built that. I think didn't you acquire a couple of other
I did.
operations and then you sold it.
Yeah. So I had Hyundai of Newport Richey, and then I acquired Hyundai of Wesley Chapel, Mazda of Wesley Chapel. I bought Chevrolet in Dade City, moved it to
Mm.
Wesley Chapel. I bought Volkswagen in Newport Richey. Opened up a large certified used car center. I had the Genesis brands and had accumulated 55 or 58 acres of land and buildings. And in March of 2001, I sold all of that to Lithia Motors out of Oregon, which is now the largest public automotive retailer in the world.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Okay. And that was a significant transaction.
It was. Yeah. Yeah. For me, for sure.
And so one of the folks we've had on this podcast, Blake Poole, is a wealth manager, and he gave me the term sudden wealth syndrome.
Yes.
He deals with a lot of business owners who sell, and all of a sudden they're sitting on a pile of cash they have to figure out how to manage.
Yes.
They have access now to private client, and now they're passive investors, not active investors with one single asset driving kind of their wealth today, their wealth tomorrow. It's a very different experience. How did that impact you? That sort of all of a sudden you now have a large bank account, but you don't have this gigantic operation that you're managing day to day. I know you kept a piece, but how did that impact you?
Yeah. So one of the things I did is I kept the Volkswagen dealership, and I had acquired the franchise rights for Subaru.
Yeah.
So I did build and we operate that, and I did that purposely because I wanted to stay connected to the
Yeah.
business, and I wanted to be able to have some operational cash flow for my day to day life. I think the gentleman's name is Blake. You
Yeah.
said,
Yeah. Blake.
he's 100% right. So I did a lot of reading, lots and lots and lots of reading, and I was sent an article from a friend who it was written by a couple of grad students out of Yale, PhD students out of Yale, that spoke just about this, and their advice was that don't do anything for a year.
Hmm.
Just don't do anything for a year, because people tend to make really bad decisions because they have time and they have money. So they may invest in things
Mhm.
that they may not be familiar with and may not pan out. So I took that advice, and I just, banked the money, and I was going on my little business. The train was moving a lot slower. And then I started to think about what could be next. I wound up joining, you ever hear of Tiger 21?
No, I haven't.
So Tiger 21 is an organization that was founded by a gentleman who had a transaction and found himself kind of alone on an island.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, the neighbor he was really good friends with, played golf with, who does well, but doesn't have $100 million in the bank. And all of a sudden, this guy really can't talk to his neighbor about his problems. So he founded this group, and there's a threshold-based net worth.
Mhm.
And the thought was to get people in the same economic situation in a room to kind of talk about,
Yeah.
maybe you could talk about deals, maybe you can talk about issues, but talk about life and things like that.
Yeah.
So ultimately, this thing got so big, he sold it to private equity, and now it's a global company. And there are other companies that do very similar things like R360. So I was in that group for a couple of years, and I learned a lot from peers in that group. But like anything, I felt it had a shelf life for me.
Yeah. Right.
And what you find is the things that are important to you or became important to you are not necessarily important to the other guys or gals. And I took out of it what was good for me, and I moved on. But what I can tell you, Dara, I don't have it all solved. It is a work in process. And it's something that I have to talk about and deal with kind of every day. It's an everyday thing.
That support system is so, I think, so critical. You think of folks who have had a big transaction and they're sitting on a pile of wealth, and not a lot of folks are going to have a ton of empathy. But I think you deserve our empathy because you've sold something that is in many ways your purpose,
Yes.
and now that's gone, and you're trying to find out who you are without this business, and that is something that people really struggle with. And talking to folks who have walked that same path or going through it as well with empathy is probably the most important thing you possibly can do, because you're just not going to find a lot of support elsewhere. If you start saying, "Listen, I'm having a tough time," people are going to say, "Wah,"
That's
right,
exactly right.
right,
Right? Because the old theory is, well, money solves all
right,
problems. And then you realize that's not true at all.
and it creates a lot of
It
problems.
can create
Yeah,
lots of problems. And I knew through research that a couple of things, right? I knew that I did not want people standing over my grave and eulogizing me at some point, saying, "Man, you remember Scott? That dude sold a lot of cars.
right.
Like he was a good car dealer." That was that was not something that I necessarily wanted to be remembered for. That's a nice footnote.
Yeah,
What I really shifted a lot of my focus to, and I had started doing it when had the operating companies, was uh, giving back to the community. And I started when the companies were thriving, where I was peeling off dollars from every car sale, and we were giving away money every single month. We were giving away three, four, $500,000 a year below the radar to our community, whether we buy football uniforms for the local team.
yeah.
A woman lost her car in a sinkhole. I replaced the car. One of the biggest things, and one of the first things that really got me going, was sad. In Newport Richey, this gentleman's three kids were asphyxiated
Oh,
during their sleep, and they all died. And he wanted to bury them in their hometown in Ohio, and he didn't have the money.
wow.
So I paid for that um, because I could.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it for any other reason than to help someone out.
Hmm.
And when I sold and I had more time and I had more resources, I set up a family foundation, and I try to get my family more involved. And we really got behind some significant causes that are very important to myself and my wife and my family.
That was the next place I wanted to go anyway. So the notion of philanthropy and community and family, those three seem to be really conjoined
Yes.
for you. So talk about some of the missions that are so important, so central to your purpose, and also that of your wife and your family.
So I'd say the first one is our relationship with Metropolitan Ministries. My wife and I were watching a 60-minute segment, probably in '09, just coming through the recession. And there's a famous story about a family, a single dad and two kids living out of a bread truck in Orange County, um, outside of Orlando. And my wife and I watched that, and I can remember it like it was yesterday. And she and I looked at each other, we're tearing up, and I said, I bet that situation is as bad, if not worse, right here where our business operates in Newport Richey. And we did some research and found out that yes, it was equally, if not worse. And we wanted to do something, and we started doing all this research, and we realized that we really didn't know what we were doing. And I talked to a friend and I told him where our interest lied. And I said, I want to try to help these homeless families get back on their feet and be sustaining members of our community. He said, talk to the folks at Metropolitan Ministries. And I did. And we were absolutely aligned. And we got involved, and I joined the board. And I mean, over time, we wouldn't say single-handedly, but we helped build the facility up in Pasco County that was just expanded to 48
Mm.
families. And it's a wonderful thing. And the facility is named after my wife and myself as kind of a legacy thing. Um, but it may not have happened if I didn't see that 60-minute segment and all the dots were connected. So that was really the first one. And then my relationship with St. Joe's and Baycare.
Yeah.
And, it's like that old expression, you can have everything in life, but if you don't have your health, you have nothing. And being able to offer the best healthcare here in our community where folks don't have to travel outside, even if you have the resources. It's easy to say, oh, we'll go to Nashville. Well, you know what? If you have more than one kid and your child has cancer,
Yeah.
you can't go to Nashville.
Yeah.
It really disrupts your family.
Hmm.
Why can't we have the best doctors and the best resources here medically for Tampa Bay and our community? And that's our goal. So we really leaned in hard, ran the foundation, on the foundation, chair the campaign to build a children's hospital. I joined the parent board of Baycare, and I find it to be valuable time and money well invested.
And are there specific missions, or are you more opportunistic? You see something that aligns with, your worldview, your personal sort of rubric on what's important. Is that how you do it, or are there certain? So we invest in health, health, hunger, and education. Those
We're,
are our pillars at Benchmark. I'm curious if you have pillars, or if it's really what moves you in the
I
moment.
say, I say, Dara, we're 100% aligned.
Yeah.
To me, it's education, healthcare, hunger. Metropolitan Ministries, sustainability, hunger,
Yeah.
getting people back on their feet. We donate money to Meals on Wheels. I'm proud to say that my wife, twice a week for years, um, drives and delivers meals.
Wow.
And she has built, I mean, it's exciting when I come home on a Tuesday and Thursday and she'll tell me the stories of the relationship. She's providing the food, but she's providing relationships
Yeah.
for these homebound seniors for the most part. And it's so heartwarming. So my wife's relationship with me, we like to joke that, I'm the board guy and she's the doer.
Yeah.
If you want to get something done, you ask my wife to do it and she will do it. So I would say in terms of pillars, we are very much aligned.
Now, a lot of folks of means are willing to open up their checkbook and write a check, but actually donating the time, that's something that is probably more valuable in a lot of ways, right?
Agreed.
So that's something that's important to you and obviously to your wife as
It,
well.
it, it really is. And I've had conversations with folks who have the resource, and I have folks tell me, I really want to get involved. I don't know how.
Mm.
How do I do it? And they could still be running companies or they're successful physicians. And I'm honored to be able to open those doors for them and try to help them. Because we might think as philanthropists that it's easy, but unless you're in that world, you may not know that. So I think transparency, communication with folks and show them how easy it can be for them to get involved.
So you've been so important to this region for now several decades. What do you think we're missing to hit that next sort of inflection point? Is there something that we're missing?
Yeah, and I appreciate that's very kind of you to say. Tampa Bay's getting wealthier and Tampa Bay is getting younger.
Hmm.
So I think for us to continue to grow and thrive as a community, versus business and philanthropically, we have to connect with these new people.
Yeah.
We have to connect with the next generation. I'm very happy to say I like to put myself in different rooms with younger generations and I'm really, shocked at how successful these people are.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy for them. But let's get to them early
Yeah.
because they want to make a difference. And we have to work harder through these really connected organizations to build that bridge for them. How do we do it? Get in front of them. And I preach in the hospital system and at Meals on Wheels, because typically it's the older people that give the money and give of their time. Let's find a way to get the younger generation involved.
No, that's so well said. I mean, especially our current younger generation, they're finding it so difficult to find their footing. It's so hard. They can't buy a house. They feel like they can't buy a house, and in many cases, they're right. There's been a wealth transfer from young people to the older folks, like you and I.
Yes.
Right? We've certainly benefited from that from a policy perspective. Is a flow of cash going from folks who kind of need it to those who probably don't need it as much, and,
You're
and that,
right.
they're feeling it. They need our help for sure.
Well, I think this is one of the biggest issues in success and growth.
Mm.
I'll give you an interesting statistic. Back in late 2019, the average transaction price for a vehicle in America was $29,000.
Okay.
Today, it's over $52,000.
Wow. That's almost a double.
Right. So you factor in inflation broadly, what everything else cost, and then you factor in higher interest rates. Affordability for a vehicle is out of reach for many. And then you think about that for a house in your comment. I've got a 33-year-old and a 31-year-old and a 30-year-old. If I don't help them
Yeah.
buy a house, I don't know how a 30-year-old would be able to do it
Yeah.
in today's world.
Yeah.
And when I moved to Tampa in 1989, Florida was inexpensive.
Yeah.
Tampa was a dream community
Mhm.
because it was affordable. It's not anymore. How do we change that? And that is something that we have to work. It can only be the politics of it and the government of it. We as a community have to get behind that and find alternatives to affordable housing.
No doubt. I totally agree with you. That's something hopefully that is top of mind of other folks like you and I, because it's a huge problem. And if we want to continue to ascend as a community here to reach these new heights that we've all talked about, we really need to figure that one out. No doubt
Agreed.
about it.
Yes.
So you've talked a lot about things we can do to sort of impart wisdom on the next generation. And we've talked about how we can help potential sellers of businesses. I'm wondering, what's that one piece of guidance maybe that you'd want to impart on a prospective seller, someone who's got a business that they're thinking about maybe selling. You've sold twice. You've bought a lot of companies. What are your thoughts on maybe one nugget you could leave us with?
Yeah, so I think it's important that everybody understand, operators of companies, entrepreneurs, that you really have to have a plan,
Hmm.
right? Nobody lives forever. As I like to say, nobody's getting out of here alive.
No.
So not strategizing, not planning, um, could be a real downfall. Even if you've got children in your business or you've got folks in your business who you think are capable of buying you out over time, get ahead of that. And I think it is important, and I'm here with you in Benchmark, you're an M&A advisor. Get the right advisor,
Yeah.
right? I did that. I was a successful car dealer. I don't do M&A for a living.
Right.
So I went out and I found people that do it for a living and they're smart and I learned from them. So my real advice is don't think you know it because you probably don't know it.
Right.
Hire yourself strategic partners who understand the business, who can help guide you.
No, that's great wisdom. I really appreciate you saying it, because when I say it, it sounds a little trite because I'm trying to get their business, right?
Yes, I understand.
It resonates more coming from you.
But it's valuable, and I can tell you through, especially the second transaction, having a good M&A advisor got me an extra $20 million on the sale because he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
I would have absolutely or potentially left that money on
Yeah.
the table.
No problem. So the last question I want to get to here is actually, I'm going to ask for your help here for future podcasts. So if you were sitting in my chair and you had someone like yourself, a business owner, a business operator, someone who's maybe has sold a business, and you had an opportunity to ask one question, what would be that question that you'd want to ask them? And I'd love to hear your answer as well, if that's possible.
Boy, that's a hard question. So what's one question I would ask? And it may go back to the initial question you asked me. What is your broader philosophy?
Hmm.
Right? And I'm not saying business philosophy,
Yeah.
because there are people in the world that have a business philosophy and then a personal philosophy.
Right.
Mine are the same.
Okay.
And I think to be a well-rounded person, those philosophical beliefs have to align.
Yeah.
So I'd like to know at any level, what is your philosophy in life? And if they've got a sound philosophy, I think you will take away, but even before you know anything about them, that they would have been successful.
Hmm.
And we're not going to measure success by the size of your bank account,
Right.
right? Because success is really dictated by you personally
Yep.
and how you measure success. That would be something interesting to me.
And I would measure it based on impact. And
Yes.
you can define impact in any way you want. So I'd love to hear your answer to that. What is your philosophy that you live your life by that you also, it sounds like you also use in your business?
I would say for me, it's simple. It's love and kindness, right? It's loving my family, loving my community, love what I do. Be kind,
Yeah.
right? Put others first. And if you put others first and you do everything with an intention of love, you will be successful.
What a great way to end. I mean, I think
That was great. That was a great question.
I think that's a universal, piece of knowledge for all of us to pay attention to.
Thank you.
Love and kindness is certainly the way to go about your life. Well, Scott, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I look forward to maybe seeing you again soon and maybe shopping in some of your dealerships.
Thank you, Dara. I appreciate the opportunity. Enjoy
Absolutely.
getting to talk to you.
Absolutely. And remember, in business and in life, the best outcomes aren't found, they're built. Far too many business owners go into the most impactful financial transaction of their lives with both arms tied behind their backs. That's because they're operating at a severe disadvantage. Most business owners sell precisely one time, once. So not only do they not know the answers, in many cases, they don't know the questions to ask. And that isn't their fault. M&A has a language of its own, and no one has made a mission of ensuring business owners are as informed as their advisors and the buyer on the other side of the transaction. Until now. This podcast exists to serve that gap. But we can only fulfill our mission if this show finds those who could most benefit from its content. So please help us find those people. If you like this podcast, let us know. And let the world know. Hit the like button. Tell us what you learned in an episode or what you want us to cover next. Subscribe. Share it with someone who needs it. Help us close that gap.